It's Bill from Suffolk in England here. Please join me as I convert an ex-military defender and take her on trips to interesting countries around the world. Enjoy the trip. It's time for my first trip of the year, in what I hope is going to be a very busy travel year. I've decided to go to Corsica, an island I wanted to visit for some time. It's now mid-March and it's out of season down there, but it should still be a great deal warmer than it is in chilly Britain. I start planning the trip a few weeks ahead of time by researching and downloading tracks from Wikiloc and loading them onto the navigation laptop which I have mounted beside me in the cab of the Land Rover. All my boxes are packed and are ready to go into the back of the Land Rover. And now the big moment when I'm setting off. I'm going to be away for around 2 weeks, including travelling to and from Corsica. Driving through France, we have motorways, traffic, secondary roads, and we have rain too. After a couple of days of hard driving, I'm in Toulon and now boarding the ferry. To my surprise, I find that this ship doesn't have Pullman seats, so I've decided to splash out in a first-class cabin. I'm sure I'll sleep well. After a smooth crossing and a reasonable night's sleep, we're now ready to disembark. We arrive in Bastia, which is a very interesting city, built around the harbour. I'd love to do a proper tour of the city, but I'm going to leave that for another day. I want to head out on the road now. So what I intend to do today is to broadly follow this route, which I've downloaded from Wikiloc. It means going up north along the coast road from Bastia, before turning off to the left, going up over the Col Saint-Jean and then dropping down on the other side towards Saint-Florent. We leave the main road, turning left going up this little track, and we go up and we carry on going up. And after about 20 minutes of fairly steep climbing, we're suddenly at the top. Peace and tranquility, looking back over the coast which we've left behind. There's this beautiful little chapel, the Chapel of Saint-Jean, at the top. And if we look ahead of us, towards the west, we're suddenly looking down on the west coast of Corsica. Absolutely beautiful. Going down the other side, the track is in rather poorer condition. I go really slowly because I'm worried about damaging the tyres on the rocks. I'm sorry, it doesn't make great video, but it does mean I get there with an undamaged vehicle. But look at the stunning view ahead. Isn't it fantastic? Dropping down to the coast, it is indeed as pretty close up as it appeared from up above. And look, this stunning beach is completely deserted. After a great day, I need to find somewhere to spend the night. Because it's out of season, all of the campsites in Corsica are shut, so I'm just going to have to stay here instead. Oh, what hardship. Moving on from Saint-Florent, I've decided to go around the coast and up to a place called Plage de Salexia, which is a very isolated little beach. You get to the beach by means of a little track about 15 kilometres long. I believe that a lot of people take their normal road cars down there, and I think you're probably better off with a 4x4. It gets to be quite popular at the weekend with off-roaders. The beach itself was nearly deserted when I was there, just one or two groups of people, although I do believe that it can get to be quite busy during the season. There is a little campsite there, the Camping du Paradis. They are officially closed, but they said that I could sleep there if I wanted. The toilets weren't being cleaned and there was no hot water, but I was still more comfortable than if I had been rough camping. I had a very peaceful night as the only camper on the site, and I was greeted by this view in the morning. I spent a peaceful couple of hours sitting in the sunshine before packing the camp, with the inevitable 2 or 3 cups of tea. I have a Wi-Fi hub in the Land Rover, and to my great surprise I found I was able to get online. Whilst I do like being off-grid, it is also nice to remain in touch with the outside world from time to time. I push on along the coast, going to the west, ending up at a nice little place called Loomio. As I said before, all of the campsites are shut. However, I stumbled across this one. The gates were open, I drove in, there was no one to pay, so I decided to stay the night. I was the only person there. I have vowed not to use the camping gas stove during this trip, and so I'm using the little volcano kettle. It works very well. I'd like to go off-grid today, and I've decided to go down into the Bonifato forest. You can see my track log here, outlined in blue, and we are to the southeast of Calvi, probably no more than about 30 kilometres away in a straight line, and indeed surprisingly close to Calvi Airport. Although as this Google Earth image shows, it's actually a very rugged and isolated little spot. So we take this track into the forest. At the lower end it's quite well made and quite smooth. Now I imagine it's used quite a lot by both hunters and forestry workers. At the upper end it gets progressively rougher, no maintenance, very few people come up here. We're currently at about 800 meters elevation. As expected, the track finally peters out, so I'm afraid I have to stop here, turn back round and go down again. But I do intend to spend the night up in the forest. Well, that's it for today. I stopped very early, about 3 o'clock, but I was in a nice spot, and so why go on somewhere else? The campsites aren't yet open, so whether you like it or not, you have to go wild camping, and this is as good a spot as any. I'm in the Bonifato forest in North Corsica. We're very isolated, we're off-grid, no phone signal, but that's not a problem, and I think I'm unlikely to be disturbed overnight. I've got all I need. I think there's a couple of cold beers in the fridge, maybe even a glass of wine, enough food for a simple meal, and I've got a very good book to read. What more do you need? Life is good. So this is the view from my camp. Very peaceful, very isolated, totally off-grid. But hey, what are those clouds coming in over the far mountain? They look just a little bit threatening. Well, it's now morning and I'm heading out down the mountain. I'm afraid to say those storm clouds last night did indeed develop into a full-blown storm, although my trusty old overcamp tent kept me completely dry. But it wasn't much fun breaking camp this morning. But it doesn't really matter. You take the rough with the smooth, and overall I've had a great time up in the forest. I've come to a nice little seaside town called Galleria. I've come down here to look for some breakfast. Obviously I didn't feel like taking breakfast in the wet and windy camp. As you can see, the sea is somewhat agitated from the overnight storm. This is the boat ramp, although I don't think anyone's going to be launching here today. And this is another view of the sea breaking on the rocks. Having spent the night in the seaside town of Porto Otter, I've got a big day ahead of me. I want to head inland as far as the regional town of Quartey. It's going to be a mix of on-road and off-road driving. There's a stunning drive along the coastal route between Calvi and Porto Otter. I would highly recommend anyone to do it if you possibly can. It's necessary to keep beeping your horn going around the blind corners because other drivers have a tendency to cut the corner. I'm on the road heading east from Porto, and whilst it's pleasant enough, I think it'd be fun to take some off-road shortcuts. The map shows that I can take a detour through the little mountain village of Marignana and rejoin the main road a bit later on. I'm now climbing up the mountain track, and it gets more interesting the further I go. The track is getting more technical, and I've decided to stop for a minute and walk on to see what lies ahead. The track ahead is getting smaller and rockier, and it may become impassable, so I've decided to turn back now without further ado. Now, the White Knuckle Brigade, by which I mean the serious off-roaders, they regard me as being a bit of a wimp for not pushing on in situations like this and fighting it out to the bitter end in order to get through to the other side. And I plead guilty as charged. But I'm okay with that. Particularly when travelling alone, I'd far rather turn back and come back with an undamaged vehicle. There was an occasion a few years ago when I didn't do that, and I actually risked losing the vehicle over the edge, and so I do know my limitations. We've now rejoined the road after the off-road excursion, and our route takes us between Corsica and Ponte Castilla. The little road follows a rocky gorge with a river down to our right, and I find the scenery utterly compelling. It is brutal, yet very beautiful. I'll let the video run for a minute without any commentary or background music, just to give you a flavour of the experience. I arrived in Quartey and needed to find somewhere to spend the night. Now, this area is one of those annoying places where anywhere you might want to go or anything you might want to do, everything is interdit. The campsites are all shut, and there's certainly no wild camping, so you have no option but to go into a hotel. I booked into a nice looking apart hotel called the Vanina Park, and I went along quite early to check in, and I found that the receptionist had buggered off early and hadn't left me a key, so I had to find another hotel at a higher price. I went back in the morning to complain, and the receptionist was of course very désolé. Now désolé is a much used French word. It doesn't really have an exact translation in English, but a literal translation is, Monsieur, I'm sorry to hear about your problems, but I'm not interested, so get lost and leave me alone.